The water came faster than anyone expected. I stood on the ridge, camera in hand, watching a leopard trapped on a fallen tree, surrounded by rushing brown water that rose by the second. But that wasn't what stopped my breath. An elephant emerged from the forest upstream, alone, walking straight toward the tree. I was trained to document nature, not to step between a dying predator and a giant who had no reason to help or trust me.
The Umfolozi Reserve doesn't flood like this. Not in September, not this fast. I've been tracking a leopard sighting for 3 days, routine work, nothing unusual, when the sky opened and the valley turned into a river in less than an hour. The leopard was young, male, maybe 4 years old. I'd seen him twice before, always alone, always cautious. Now he was clinging to a dead acacia tree wedged between two rocks, 20 feet from the bank. The current was violent. Debris slammed against the tree every few seconds. Branches, mud, a torn piece of fencing. His left hind leg was wrong. Even from the ridge I could see the angle, broken or worse. Blood mixed with the muddy water below him. He wasn't moving much, just holding on, breathing hard, watching the water rise toward his chest. I raised my radio to call the ranger station. That's when the elephant appeared. She came from the upper valley, walking with purpose through water that reached her knees. Bulls don't cross floods. Females with herds don't cross floods. Solitary elephants definitely don't walk toward dying leopards. But she did. She stopped 10 feet from the tree, her trunk lifted, testing the air. The leopard saw her, his ears flattened, a low growl carried over the water. The elephant didn't react. She just stood there, assessing. Then she moved closer. She positioned herself upstream of the tree, her massive body creating a barrier against the current. The water split around her flanks, reducing the force hitting the acacia. The tree stopped shaking. The leopard's growl faded, and I realized what I was watching. She was holding the tree steady. My training was screaming at me, do not approach predators in distress, do not enter flood zones, do not interfere with natural processes. But the leopard's leg wasn't natural. I zoomed in with my lens and saw it clearly. A wire snare, rusted and tight, cutting deep into the flesh above his hock. Poacher's trap. He'd torn free somehow, but the damage was catastrophic. Infection, blood loss, hypothermia. He had maybe an hour. The elephant shifted her weight. The tree creaked. She looked upstream, then back at the leopard, waiting. I don't know what made me move. Maybe it was the look in her eye, that ancient knowing gaze that elephants have. Maybe it was knowing that if I walked away, I'd carry this moment forever. I started down the ridge. The water hit me at mid-thigh before I was halfway there, cold, shockingly strong. The elephant's head turned toward me. The leopard's eyes locked on mine. I kept my hands visible, moved slowly, spoke in a low voice, meaningless words, just tone. I'm not a threat. I don't know what I am. The elephant watched me wade closer. She didn't move. The leopard's claws dug into the bark, his muscles tensed, but he didn't lunge. I reached the tree. Up close, the wound was worse. The wire had cut to bone. I had tools meant for people and a problem no tool could fix. I looked at the elephant. She was still holding position against the current, her trunk resting on a branch near the leopard's head. Not threatening, just there. I looked at the leopard. His breathing was shallow, his eyes half closed. He knew he was dying, and somehow he knew I was trying to help. I reached for the wire. My hands found the snare. The leopard's breathing changed, sharper, faster. The elephant's trunk shifted slightly, touching the leopard's shoulder. A low rumble vibrated through the water. Not a warning, something else. The leopard went still. I cut the wire. It snapped with a sound that made my stomach turn. Blood poured from the wound, dark, too much. I wrapped it tight with what I had. My hands were shaking.
not from cold, from the realization that neither of them had tried to stop me. The bandage held. The bleeding slowed. I stepped back. The leopard lifted his head slightly, looked at me for 3 long seconds, then lowered it again onto the trunk of the tree. The elephant's trunk moved to the water, scooped, and sprayed a gentle stream across the leopard's face. He didn't flinch. I stood there, waist-deep in floodwater, watching an elephant care for a leopard like it was the most natural thing in the world. The rain stopped. The current began to ease. By the time the sun broke through the clouds, the water had dropped enough to expose the rocks near the bank. The leopard stirred. He tested his weight on 3 legs, the 4th hanging useless. Then he dragged himself off the tree, onto the rocks, and collapsed in a patch of sunlight. The elephant backed away slowly, turned, and walked upstream without looking back. I climbed onto the bank and sat down. No roar, no trumpet, just the sound of water receding, as if none of it had ever happened.
3 years. I never saw the leopard again. I filed a report, marked the location, checked the area for months. Nothing. The reserve absorbed the story. Rangers told it to tourists. Researchers asked questions I couldn't answer. But the leopard was gone. Sometimes the absence of an answer is the loudest sound in the wild. I told myself he'd survived, found territory deeper in the reserve, adapted to 3 legs. I told myself a lot of things. I was walking the eastern boundary trail when I heard it. A low, guttural warning call from the bush ahead. Leopard. I froze. Then I saw her, a female, young, crouched 10 meters off the trail. Not hunting, not threatened, blocking the path. She growled again when I tried to move forward. I stepped back. She held her ground. That's when I heard the snap. A massive baobab branch, dead, invisible from below, broke free directly above where I'd been standing. It hit the trail with a sound like thunder. If I'd taken 3 more steps, it would have crushed me. The female leopard watched the branch fall, then turned her amber eyes to me. For just a moment, I saw something I recognized. The tilt of her head, the way her ears moved. Then she melted into the bush without a sound. I walked to where she'd been standing and found tracks in the soft earth. 3 paws and 1 dragging mark. I never told anyone about the tracks. Some people wouldn't believe it. Others would try to explain it away. Coincidence, instinct, anthropomorphism. But I know what I saw. A debt paid. Not with gratitude, not with affection, with the only currency the wild understands. A life for a life. The wild doesn't forgive. It remembers.